Brave Fencer Musashi would have to be the only RPG I've ever started but not finished. I don't know why, it just kinda happened. It was far too long ago to actually remember. I probably got distracted with other games. All I do remember is some short purple-haired whiny kid jumping around the place swinging a sword. And that's pretty much all there is to it, but in the best possible way. Around the time of its release, way back in '98, Squaresoft were busy developing loads of traditional RPGs such as Xenogears and Final Fantasy. Musashi, however, is a little different, as there is a massive swing into the action RPG direction. So, is the journey with this little purple fella worth 15 hours of your life? Watch and find out. Brave Fencer Musashi is a lot like a resume written in Comic Sans. You just can't take it seriously. The game takes place in All-You-Can-Eat Kingdom, who are being invaded by the Thirst Quencher Empire. In order to save the kingdom, Princess Fillet summons Musashi from his homeworld. That's really all there is to it. Save the people of All-You-Can-Eat Kingdom, defeat your enemies, and rescue the princess, who, like all good princesses, gets herself kidnapped. I will mention that there was actually a plot twist at the end of the game that I didn't see coming. This was surprising, as I didn't think the game was capable of plot twists. To sum it up, the entire Musashi experience is lighthearted, full of puns and overly cheesy dialogue and voice acting. You could literally buy an entire factory of camembert and it would still be no match for some of Musashi's cheesy one-liners. But seriously, it's all about the charm. All of these elements just work together to create a fun, unique package.
Oh yeah, and that big imbecile with the cape! He kidnapped a princess! That loser! I let him get away! Hey Geezer, do I have to save the princess to go back to my world?
Thou art being corrected.
As mentioned before, Musashi is very different to Squaresoft's other titles around the time. Essentially, it's a 3D platformer with RPG elements. There's one main hub in the game, and that's the city, and this is where most of the plot unfolds. From here, Musashi can venture out into about a dozen dungeon-like areas, and this is where most of the platforming and fighting takes place. Now, I'm an Australian living with kangaroos in my backyard, so naturally, I know the basics of jumping. In fact, my jumping ability has got me through both real life and video games just fine for the past 30 years. Then I met Musashi. For some unknown reason, I was absolutely hopeless with the platform jumping aspect of this game. Actually, the reason isn't unknown. The reason is that the jumping mechanics are a little flawed. So many times I clearly jumped off the edge of a platform only to fall to my doom. Seriously, receiving the double jump ability was the greatest feeling ever. Jumping aside, for the most part, working through the dungeons themselves are a lot of fun. The puzzles that you'll need to solve are fairly straightforward and usually involve assimilating a monster and using their unique abilities to progress. For instance, to progress through these spiky bushes, you need to assimilate a certain monster that will give you the pogo jumping technique. Each of the areas are filled with secrets to discover. One such example is the task of freeing all of the palace's inhabitants who are all in stasis and scattered around the place. Freeing these allies will not only increase your BP stat, which is like MP, but also allow you to talk to them back in the castle. Doing so will provide you with a bunch of benefits such as teaching you new techniques. I found myself exploring every square inch of the world and experimenting with different assimilated abilities in hope of finding something new. The battles themselves are pretty simple. Most of these involve Musashi jumping around, hacking and slashing, and occasionally throwing in a powered up attack with his sword. Throw in the use of monster assimilated abilities and you have yourself a system that does just enough to keep the 15-hour journey interesting. The boss battles are something else worth mentioning. Just as you would expect from a boss, they require specific strategies to defeat, and I must admit, these fights were one of the highlights of the game for me. Brave Fencer Musashi is a unique experience and I'm really glad I made the time to finally finish it, even if it did take me about 15 years. Just about everything in the game is cheesy, from the puns to the dialogue and voice acting, and if you jump in expecting a serious narrative matching Squaresoft's other projects, you'll be disappointed. Personally, I thought it all gave the game charm and combined together perfectly to create 15 hours of fun entertainment. While most of the gameplay is fairly simple, the boss battles at the end of each chapter were a highlight for me. The same can be said about the dungeons that were all well designed and full of secrets to discover, even if the jumping mechanics did drive me crazy at times. If you have a spare 15 hours and can get your hands on this classic, then I recommend giving Brave Fencer Musashi a shot. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this, hit like and subscribe for more RPG content. Also check out my Facebook page. See you next time.